All right, let's get down to brass tacks immediately. So what does it actually cost to sell a home in Washington state in 2026? Well, if you're looking at your Zestimate or just some generic online calculator and you're just subtracting 6%, then you are setting yourself up for a massive financial letdown at the closing table. So most Washington homeowners believe that they're sitting on a mountain of equity, but they do not realize that between the graduated new excise taxes, the new commission structures, and local compliance fees, the cost to move within the Pacific Northwest can easily top $65,000 for a median-sized home before you even touch your mortgage. Well, I am Leah Courage, your Washington State real estate advisor, and today I am going to show you the difference between the sellers who thrive by navigating these costs and the ones who fail because they were totally blindsided by a net sheet that they didn't see coming until 48 hours before closing. So by the end of this video, you will have a clear and data-backed roadmap of the 4 major cost buckets that will vanish from your proceeds. And also as a bonus, we're going to talk about expenses that include things like specific utility holdbacks and HOA fees that most agents tend to be too lazy to mention. So let's dive in. So I'm going to be honest with you, selling a home in the Pacific Northwest has never been more expensive or unfortunately more complex than it is right now. So we're currently operating in what I think is kind of a unique trifecta of high property values, extremely aggressive state levels taxation, and also a completely restructured way of handling real estate commissions following the landmark legal settlement as of the last few years. So if you're sitting in a home in Bellevue or Tacoma or Spokane, you need to understand that your walkaway number is a moving target right now. So the first major bucket that we have to talk about, and the one that usually causes the most confusion, is our lovely Washington State real estate excise tax, commonly known as the REET. So this isn't a flat fee that you are going to find like we have in a lot of other states where they just charge you a couple $100s for a deed transfer. Washington uses a graduated ladder system that was specifically updated for 2026. So if you look at the tax charts, then you're going to see that you're paying 1.1% of the first portion of your sale price, but that threshold recently moved to $750,000. And so while for some that sounds like a win, the sting actually comes when you cross into the higher tiers. So if you're in a high demand area like Kirkland or Issaquah or Sammamish and your home sells for $1.5 million, then that rate is going to jump significantly. And for those of you who are selling luxury estates on Mercer Island or the Bellevue waterfront for over $3 million, then you are hitting a state rate of 3% plus a brand new 1% surcharge specifically for high value transfers. Lovely, isn't it? So when you look at the map of our region, these numbers add up incredibly fast. So on a $2 million sale in King County, you're looking at over $25,000 just in state taxes before a single person gets paid a commission or you pay a title fee. So this is exactly why you cannot afford to wing it when it comes to your financial planning or your choice of representation in a real estate broker. So if you're even considering making a move this year, whether it is across the street in Seattle or across the globe to a different country, then you need to stop and please reach out to us right now. Not only can my team and I provide you with an accurate pinpoint real-time net sheet for your Washington property that accounts for these exact tax brackets, but we also operate an elite and trusted partner program. So we've spent years vetting the top 1% of agents across the United States and internationally. So if you're moving to Florida or Texas or even Portugal, we are going to pair you with a localized expert who shares our realist philosophy and our high standard of service. So don't leave your equity to chance just by picking a random name off of a yard sign or a Zillow ad in a different zip code. Go ahead and call us today. Our number and information is below, and let us ensure that your transition is seamless no matter where your next chapter begins. So now let's get into the second bucket, which is the new reality of real estate commissions in 2026, everyone's favorite topic. So the landscape changed forever after the National Association of Realtors settlements, and also in the Northwest Multiple Listing Service, which serves Western Washington and part of Eastern Washington. Transparency has for several years at this point actually been, but is now definitely the absolute law of the land. So you're no longer just paying a standard fee that gets split in half behind the scenes in a way that feels completely like a mystery. Instead, today, we unbundle these costs completely. So you will negotiate a fee for your listing broker to handle the high-end marketing and the professional staging and the legal heavy lifting, and also the ultra complex negotiation strategy that can happen with a lot of listings these days. But the big hard truth in 2026 is the buyer side concession. So according to the most recent data from February of 2026, over 85% of successful sales in King County and Snohomish County still involve the seller offering a strategic concession to cover the buyer agent fees. Now, question is why? Well, it's because with interest rates where they are and home prices hitting record new highs in the Puget Sound, buyers are, it's just a fact, more cash strapped than ever. So if you refuse to offer a competitive concession, you aren't actually saving money. In reality, you are shrinking your pool of potential buyers by nearly 90% because most buyers cannot afford to pay their down payment, their closing costs, and their agent's fee out of pocket. We see sellers every single week across the MLS who are trying to save $20,000 only to watch their homes sit on the market for 60 days or even more. So eventually they are forced to take a $50,000 price drop just to get an offer. That is bad math. And as your advisor, I'm not going to let you make that mistake, at least not without knowing the broader reality of how this decision-making might impact your marketability. So you have to understand that the commission is a marketing tool that's designed to bring the highest possible volume of qualified buyers. But there is a second and even more critical layer to this bad math that most sellers completely overlook when they think that they're going to save on not offering buyer compensation to a buyer broker or commission to a buyer broker. So in the current 2026 market, the vast majority of active listings that you see in the Northwest Multiple Listing Service are still being priced with that buyer side compensation effectively baked into the list price. So when a buyer and their agent are looking at the data, they are comparing your home to neighbors who are offering, say, 2% or 2.5% or 3% or 1% or 4% concessions as a standard part of the deal. And if you choose to offer zero compensation, but you still try to list your house as the same price as those full service listings, you are essentially overpricing your home by $20,000 or $30,000 on day one, depending on your price, of course. So think about it also from the buyer's perspective. And this is really, really important. They are already stretching their debt to income ratios to the limit these days just to qualify for a loan in Seattle or Bellevue or elsewhere in the Puget Sound. So if they have to choose between a $900,000 home where the sellers cover their agent's fee versus your $900,000 home where they have to bring an extra $23,000 cash to the closing table, which one do you think they're going to tour? You can't reasonably expect to command the same market price while providing less value to the buyer's bottom line. So if you aren't offering compensation, your list price has to reflect that missing value immediately, or the market, I promise you, is simply going to move on without you. So in summary, do you have to offer a buyer broker compensation? Absolutely not. You don't have to do anything of the like. But will it affect you if you don't? Yes. So the third bucket is what I call the paperwork penalties. And this is where the local nuances of Washington law really start to bite into your profit, unfortunately. So if you own a condo in downtown Seattle or a home in a planned community like in Trilogy, in Redmond, or Cascadia in Pierce County, then you are subject to the Washington Uniform Common Interest Ownership Act. So as of 2026, the law caps the resale certificate fee at $275. But don't let that semi-small number fool you. Homeowners associations are notorious for adding what they call transfer fees or capital contribution fees that are not always capped by state law. We have seen clients charged 0.5% of their total sales price as a community enhancement fee by their homeowners association. Suncadia, I'm looking at you. On an $800,000 home, by the way, that is $4,000 that you didn't see coming that gets deducted right off the top. And then there is what I call the FIRPTA trap, which stands for Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. So even if you are a U.S. citizen, if your escrow officer doesn't have you sign the certificate of non-foreign status correctly, or if there is any question about your residency status, the IRS can mandate a withholding of 15% of your gross sales price. Notice I said gross sales price, not your profit. And on $1 million home in Bellevue, that's $150,000 of cash that's tied up in federal limbo for months until you file your next tax return. So this is why having an insider who audits your title and escrow on day one of the listing is completely non-negotiable. So now I want to tease something crucial for those of you with older homes or rural properties. So in a few minutes, I'm going to break down the compliance killers, which are the specific county level inspections for septics and sewers that can cost you $20,000 if they aren't handled before the buyer's inspection shows up. But before we get to that, we have to talk about property tax prorations and utility holdbacks. So Washington is one of the few states where we pay property taxes in arrears. So this means that the bill that you pay in April of 2026 is actually a portion of the previous year. So when you close your sale, the buyer expects you to pay for every single day that you lived in the house. So if you haven't budgeted for that prorated hit on your net sheet, it can easily take a $3,000 to $5,000 bite out of your final check, depending on your local levy rate. So on top of that, Washington escrow companies almost always implement what's called a utility holdback because water and sewer liens follow the property, as we call it in our state, and escrow will keep $500 to $1,500 of your money in their account for up to 60 days after you move, just to ensure that Seattle Public Utilities or the city of Tacoma gets their final payment. So if you don't stay on top of those final readings and provide proof of payment, that money just sits in a third-party account earning zero interest while you are trying to set up your brand new life. So now for the hard truth that most agents are scared to tell you because they are terrified that you won't sign their listing agreement if they do. But I'm not scared, so here we go. The cheapest way to sell your home is almost always the most expensive way to exit. I see it every single day in neighborhoods like Ballard or Queen Anne or the Proctor District in Tacoma. Sellers decide to skip the $3,000 professional staging fee or the $500 professional 3D tour and the floor package plan. They think that they are being frugal or smart, especially if they're going with a discount agent. But from the hard data from the first quarter of 2026, it shows that unstaged homes in the Puget Sound sell for an average of 6% less than their staged counterparts. On an $800,000 house, you saved $3,000, but you actually lost $48,000 in gross equity. So that isn't a strategy. That's a financial disaster in my book. So my job as your broker, if you hire me, is to make sure that you are spending a dime to make a dollar and not the other way around. We right now are in a precision market where buyers are incredibly discerning. You can't just slap a sign in the yard and hope for a bidding war in the way that we did in 2021. You have to manufacture value by understanding these costs up front and positioning the home to offset them through things like superior presentation and also surgical pricing. So finally, let's talk about the compliance killers and the reality of moving costs in our current economy. So if you are selling in King County or Pierce County or Thurston County and you have a septic system, you are legally required to have a quote time of transfer inspection and often a full tank pumping before the title can even be transferred. So in 2026, a comprehensive septic certification and pump for a standard 1,500 gallon tank can cost you anywhere from say $1,200 to $2,000. And if the inspector finds a failure in your drain field or a cracked tank, then you're looking at $15,000 to $30,000 worth of repairs that you cannot negotiate away because the county literally won't let the sale proceed without the repairs. The same goes for the sewer scopes in older Seattle neighborhoods. A root intrusion from a 100-year-old oak tree or a collapsed side sewer is a common $10,000 surprise that usually pops up 3 days before your inspection contingency expires. Horrible timing, always. And don't forget about the physical cost of leaving the property as well. So local moving companies in the Seattle-Tacoma Metro are currently charging an average of $185 per hour for a standard 4-person crew. So for a typical 3-bedroom home, you should budget at least a minimum of $4,000 to $5,000 for a full service move once you include things like packing supplies and insurance and the stair fees that are so common in the hilly Pacific Northwest neighborhoods that we have here. Okay, so as promised, here is your 2026 seller's bonus. It's the secret list of negotiable and non-negotiable fees that I use to protect my clients' bottom lines. So first, you should never ever pay a transaction coordinator fee or a compliance fee to your real estate agent. That is the cost of doing business, and it is a major red flag if they try to pass that administrative overhead onto you. Second, always ask your escrow officer for the reissue rate on your title insurance if you have owned the home for less than 5 years, as this can save you several $100s on the premium. Third, verify your escrow fee split. So while the custom in Washington is to split this 50-50 with the buyer, there are some high volume title companies that actually try to charge a flat fee that actually favors the buyer side of the transaction. So make sure that your agent is auditing that settlement statement line by line. Fourth, check for reconveyance fees from your mortgage lender. So some big banks charge an extra $200 just to process the payoff of your old loan. Selling in Washington doesn't have to be a financial nightmare if you have the right real estate advisor in your corner who really understands the 2026 math. Again, if you want a team that tells you exactly what you need to hear and not just what you want to hear in order for them to get the listing, then go ahead and pick up the phone and text or call us, as we are ready to help you win and keep every single dollar of equity that you have worked so hard to build. So now let's take a moment to look at the psychological side of these costs as well. So most sellers feel a sense of loss aversion when they see these numbers. It's natural to feel like the state and the city and all the service providers are taking little pieces of your hard-earned profit, or let's be honest, big chunks of your profit. But the sellers that we see truly thrive are the ones who view these expenses as an investment in a clean, high-value exit. So when you pay for that pre-listing sewer scope or that high-end staging, you aren't just spending money, you're actually removing the risk hurdles that allow a buyer to justify a lower offer. And in 2026, buyers are looking for literally any excuse to claw back money during the inspection period. So by front-loading these costs and being transparent about the Washington math, you, as the seller, sees the narrative. You become the authoritative seller that buyers feel safe competing for. So this is how we achieve sale prices that are consistently 5 to 10% above the neighborhood average, because we don't just hope for a high net, we actually engineer it through meticulous cost management and also very strategic positioning. So in conclusion, the cost of selling a home in Washington is very high right now, but the cost of an uneducated sale is much, much higher. So from the graduated excise taxes that totally punish the unprepared to the HOA fees that are hiding in fine print, every single dollar counts, my friends. And again, my team and I are dedicated to ensuring that when you walk away from the closing table, that number on the check is exactly what we promised you from day one. We don't do ballpark estimates. We don't do best case scenarios either. We do real world data and realist advising. So whether you are selling a starter home in Everett or a legacy estate in Medina, the principles of the 2026 market remain the same. Preparation is profit. So if you're ready to start the process with a team that has their finger on the pulse of every legislative change and market shift in the state, go ahead and give us a call, because we would be honored to show you the Courage Group difference in real estate. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the financial landscape of selling real estate in Washington, go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss another video about real estate and living in Washington state. Also, if you plan on making a move, then you need an advisor who isn't just a salesperson, but a fiscal advocate who treats your equity like it's their own. So we look forward to hearing from you and helping you plan your next big move, whether that's locally here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest or out to anywhere else in the world. I am Leah Courage. Thank you again so much for watching. Keep exploring, and we will see you in our next video.